at this time, I'm going to call the Anacortes City Council meeting for January 4th, 2021 to order. Ms. Hunt, would you take the attendance?
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mr. Walters?
Here.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath?
Here.
Ms. Moulton?
Here.
Mr. McDougall?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. We're going to move to item 2 under announcements and committee reports. I'm going to do the report for 2A, which is our COVID-19 update. Island Hospital, as of 12/29, these numbers are, their lab was closed for the holiday, but as of 12/29, they've tested 10,196 people in town. With that, they had a total of 201 positive cases in their testing. 30 people have been admitted to the hospital during the COVID pandemic time period, and we've had 0 deaths. According to Skagit County Public Health, they estimate as of today that the 98221 zip code has 273 current positive COVID cases. In Skagit County, as of January 3rd, we've had 3,170 positive cases and 40 deaths and 199 people hospitalized. Compared to December 3rd of 2,142 positive cases, we had 31 deaths at that time and 143 positive cases. So quite a change in 1 month. This is an increase of 1,028 cases in the last month, an increase of 56 hospitalizations, and 9 additional tragic fatalities. We're currently at 383.1 new cases per 100,000 residents, and the percentage of individuals testing positive at this time is approximately 7%. In the state of Washington, we've had 259,000 positive cases. We've had 3,524 deaths. In the United States, to date, we've had a little over 20 million cases, and we've had 352,000 deaths. And globally, 85.5 million cases and 1.85 million deaths globally. Now on the vaccination front, from the county, we've received the county to date has received approximately 2,000 doses of the vaccine, and they've been distributed. So the doses are going out in the different areas where they've been distributed. At Island Hospital, they received 155 doses last week and were able to do 81 vaccination. Today, they received an additional 500, and they're well on their way to doing another 250 vaccination. And they're focusing on their frontline folks, healthcare workers. The Anacortes Fire Department has had its first doses of vaccination, and all but 3 employees have been vaccinated at this time. And United General has received 300 doses of vaccination, and they're well on their way to getting their frontline healthcare workers vaccinated. And that's my report for tonight. Any questions?
Mayor.
Mr. Miller.
Mayor, thank you for mentioning the vaccination piece, because I know I'm sure I'm not the only one on council that's been getting some questions about that from constituents. And I just wanted to point out that Island Hospital, I know we linked to it somewhere on our website. Apology that I can't recite that, but the CEO put out some really good information on the 28th about how they were going to prioritize the vaccines, at least for Island Hospital. So I'd encourage folks to get to the Island Hospital website or through our website to take a look at that process. I think it was very thorough.
I'll see if I can get Alexander to link that tomorrow too, so no matter where they go. Thank you for that. There was another question or comment.
Mayor Garrett, that was
Mr. Young.
thank you. Question was more about, are we I know we may not absolutely know, but are we hopeful that we would continue to receive weekly doses as the vaccine is disseminated across the country, meaning last week we received 155. This week, I think you said 500 doses. So is this expected to be week after week as we roll this out?
You know, I don't know for sure, but I can find that out. After Wednesday's briefing with the health department, I can send you all a note to that and follow up with it for the public next week. And I'll ask Alexander to get that on our website also. You're muted, Anthony. Can't hear you.
I appreciate what you've done, and I just thought that would be an additional question.
Oh, I think that's great. Mr. McDougall.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if we could perhaps lean on the county to publish vaccination numbers as well. They do a great job of publishing positive cases. It'd be great to have.
Sure, I'll request that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other comments? All right, at this time, we'll go on to item 2B. This is our Personnel Committee discussion. Mr. Hoagland, do you want to start out, or is there a member of the council that wants to report on this?
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Ms. Cleland, yes.
Yeah, so we tried to get the committee together, but it was pretty hectic through the holiday. So Mr. Hoagland and I met. Most of what we discussed is probably going to become forward under the resolution 3011. So I think we can keep it pretty short, but we do have plans to meet as a personnel committee tomorrow at 11 to address some future discussion. So we're meeting. It's a little bit weird since we don't have an AHR director, but Mr. Hoagland's doing a really good job trying to kind of keep it going and making sure that we're kept up to date.
Perfect. And I believe we're posting the HR position tomorrow morning. So looking to have someone on board by early to mid-March. So looking forward to that. All right.
Mayor Gear.
Yes, Mr. Hoagland, go
So
ahead.
thank you. So as Ms. Cleland McGrath said, we're going to meet again tomorrow at 11 a.m. And what we're going to be discussing is some of the expanded benefits that were put into place back in March by the federal government expired the end of this year, December 31st. We were not made aware of that until December 27th, when the current legislation was signed by the president, giving us virtually no time to respond with the city's how the city is going to react to the loss of those expanded benefits. So that'll be the primary points of discussion tomorrow. And I was kind of planning on, I'll write up the minutes from that, and then hopefully we can have a broader discussion about that the following Monday.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Cleland? All right, so we'll go on now to item 2C, our Public Works Committee report.
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
Public Works Committee met, staff were unable to attend, and it did become clear that we need licenses to be able to host our own Teams meetings, and ideally dial-in capability for the public to attend the committee meetings as well. But we talked about a couple of things. First of those was the 12th and Commercial intersection, and we'll hopefully be able to meet with staff in the next couple of weeks to talk through some of our concerns and ideas. We also talked a little bit about the new generator at the library, and I think that we are generally looking forward to the noise shroud that staff have planned to try to contain some of the noise that generator inflicts on a weekly basis upon the neighborhood. We talked a little bit about the new sign at the library, and then also about our electric vehicle charging stations project. And we brainstormed some ideas about where those new charging stations that we have received this commerce grant for appropriately should go to support tourism. Since staff have proposed that the match for that grant be funded by the lodging tax. So we'll relay that to staff. We didn't get to talk about the R Avenue project that is on the agenda tonight. So we have no particular insight into that, and we'll glean it all from the presentation later.
Okay, thank you. Any additions or questions? All right, we'll move on to public comment. And I don't see any member of the public that is with us this evening. If there is, it's your time to talk. All right, so we'll move on at this time to our consent agenda, item 4A and B.
Mayor Gear,
Mr. Miller.
I move to approve consent agenda items A and B.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, a second by Mr. Walters to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, now we're on to other business. Item 5. Item 5A is Resolution 3011, authorizing the signature and the execution of a memorandum of understanding to the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the Teamster Local 231. This is a discussion action item.
Mayor Guerra,
Mr. Hoagland.
if I can successfully share my screen to take a quick look at this resolution. So this is in reference to the existing agreement, the collective bargaining agreement the city has with Teamsters Local 231. That agreement was put into place with a couple of action items for this to be done for 2021. So one of the items was a wage opener. So that was section 10.02.01 of the collective bargaining agreement, provided that a wage opener to discuss the cost of living increase for 2021. That was not established. That COLA for 2021 and for 2022 for that matter were not established when the CBA was put into place. So we had negotiations with the Teamsters Local 231 and came to an agreement of 2% COLA for 2021 for the Teamster represented employees. And as I outlined here in the agenda item, that was based on one comparable that was in place. That's the city of Arlington. They had a 2.5% COLA identified for their Teamsters for 2021, and the existing COLAs that were established for the police department and fire department here at the city of Anacortes, which were at 2.5% and 2% respectively. The other item that's in the MOU that the resolution approves the mayor to sign is adding a couple of positions to the CBA that were not previously represented. And so this is another item that was identified in the collective bargaining agreement. It was addendum, I believe it was addendum E, either addendum D or E. I'm sorry, I don't have that listed here. But that was to negotiate to move some of the fiber department employees into the collective bargaining agreement to be represented by the CBA. And that was the field technicians, the outside plant coordinator, and the business assistant. So these positions identified in this little matrix will be added at salary schedule placement T22 and T23 for those different positions. And then two of the positions, the technicians and the outside plant coordinator, being given a boot allowance as well. So again, the resolution 3011 authorizes the mayor to sign the MOU with Teamsters Local 231. So happy to try and answer any questions the council may have.
Mayor Gear.
Walters.
I think this is fairly straightforward because I don't think there's a justification for giving some unions a COLA and not others. But do we usually only have one comparable? Just Arlington? Did we not look elsewhere, or is Arlington the only one that gave a COLA?
Yeah, well, Arlington is the only one that had completed their negotiations with the union at that point.
Okay. Do we expect that other comparable cities will be giving rather comparable COLAs, though?
That's I guess that's my expectation. I don't have as much experience in this area as some, but the conversations that we had with the Teamster rep and discussions with some of my counterparts in the other parts of the county, that was the impression that I got, that these types of agreements would be forthcoming to these other cities as well.
Thank you.
Mayor Gear.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
So I'm a little less enthusiastic just because we made an agreement with police and fire. First of all, there's no budget impact numbers, and we just went through a 2021 budget that was extremely challenging, primarily because additional pay increases and benefits to our negotiated union employees. So I'm a little uncomfortable with. So I guess my first question is, what's the budget impact of such a raise?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you, Mr. Miller. And so the budget that we reviewed that council just adopted last month did have a 2% increase built into the salary and wage category for those Teamster positions. So the represented employees that we knew of, that we knew what those rates were going to be, we used the actual rate. The ones that we didn't have a known quantity for, we assumed a 2% increase. So we effectively did build that into the budget.
Okay, and that great answer. And but this is more hopefully for some public education, because typically it's staff and union representation negotiating this. So my second concern is the CPI, like it is every year. And to start out, for the rest of the council, I've supported for the last 7 years just about every one of these raises with my vote. This one I'm a little less comfortable with doing. But so the budget answer is great, but for the public education, how many employees does this impact, and what employees are these? I hate to do it off the top of my head, but I'm thinking water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, library, museum. What else am I missing? Some planning employees. And what's the total number, I guess, if you could help me out with that?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I don't have that number right off the top of my head. I'd be happy to get that number for you. You covered most of them. The solid waste employees are there, as well as street employees. But yeah.
And this never has anything to do with the great people we have on staff, because we're very fortunate as a city to have such true professionals serving the citizens of Anacortes. That's true. My concern comes to affordability of the taxpayers and the challenges we just had with our budget. And the arguments are, if we don't continue to provide raises, we won't bring quality employees in. I disagree with that argument. I don't think we've ever had any issue with that when it comes to talking about pay raises. But my final issue with that, and I'll let other council members comment, is I do not support the addition of the fiber employees into the union at this time. That doesn't mean I won't support them in 2022 when we've established a fiber department that can actually pay for itself. This is not a good time to include those into the union, as we're still building a fiber department that currently can't pay for its own operational expenses. So there's my points, and happy to hear any feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Gear.
Yes, Ms. Cleland.
Yeah, so Mr. Miller, I think you bring up some good points. I had a kind of not quite the same questions, but similar questions. One was, explain why we're having to go back and address COLA on a yearly basis when that contract with the Teamsters had already been agreed upon. And for whatever reason, and unfortunately we don't have an HR director here to kind of explain the background and the history of it. But when talking to Mr. Hoagland, the other couple unions that the city deals with had already determined COLA increases for the length of their contract. And for whatever reason, this one did not determine the yearly increase for COLA. So it is a little bit different in that sense of why it's coming back in front of council. But it is in line with other employee groups within the city, and fair across the board is what my conversations at least were determined by talking to Mr. Hoagland. The other one was talking about the fiber and how I was curious also kind of the history of why some of those fiber positions were incorporated into this new contract and the update for them. And Mr. Hoagland probably can give a better answer, but my understanding was a couple of those folks who actually came over from Public Works who are already part of a union and are now working kind of under this umbrella to help expedite the build out before we start, adding additional positions in the workforce. That was part of the reason, and it was a similar type of job that would fall within the Teamsters purview. I'm glad that you're bringing it up. I think it's important that the public understands. Thank you.
Mayor Gear,
Mr. Hoagland.
I don't know and Miss Cleveland McGrath is exactly right. I don't know the entire backstory on that. That was kind of my understanding is the type of work that those employees were doing is consistent with some of the other represented positions within the Teamster CBA. But that was an item that was identified in the previous contract, or the current contract that wasn't completed during the last negotiation. So that's, I guess from my point of view, that's why we're tackling it at this point, because it was a kind of an action item.
Mr. Young?
Well, I think Mr. Miller brought up an excellent point, and I agree with him, and just that approach. But Ms. Cleveland McGrath, you answered the reason for why those things are justified right now, and that was the additional information I needed, because my concern too would be in our time that we are right now economically. The budget's trying to figure out how we fund necessary things, or even the things that that we've had on our agenda for a while. So I was with Mr. Miller about the no fiber employee admission into the union at this point too. But then now we have the point that I think Mr. Hoagland made and Ms. Cleveland McGrath was that these are employees that are coming from Public Works over doing a similar job. So, I am okay with that now because I have that understanding. And I'm okay with it. I still am cautious in how we go about this, but I think once we have our HR director in place, much of the confusion or much of the discussion will be had in advance. So yes, I think I can support it. I really do.
Who else? Someone else had
Here. Yeah, Bruce.
Yes,
I wanted to clarify that the fiber positions that came over from Public Works, that's the outside field techs, and the document we're looking at and being asked to approve, it also adds the outside plant coordinator and business assistant to that list. Is that correct? It's not just the folks that came over from Public Works.
That's correct. It includes the outside plant coordinator and the business assistant, as well as the field technicians.
Is there a specific reason why the outside plant coordinator and business assistant are being added to this, other than just that they are not part of like the management and director structure, that they're individual contributors within the department, or is there another reason?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mayor Gare, this is Emily.
Yeah, I was just going to call you. Thank you, Emily.
So thank you for the good discussion in regard to collective bargaining. And then Mr. Hoagland and I worked together on this. When the fiber department was initially started, the Teamsters contacted the city and requested that those positions be included because they have like duties to other employees that are in represented positions. We asked that they please hold off until the end of the 2-year pilot program for us to be able to determine whether or not that the project was going to be moving forward into future years. When it was decided that yes, we are moving forward, we held up our end of the bargain by saying, yes, it does make sense for these positions to be included in the collective bargaining agreement. The employees will have the opportunity to determine whether or not they choose to be represented, but they are similar like duties to other represented positions. The 2 positions within the fiber department that are not included are the manager position and also the network technician. The IT department is not included. They are FLSA exempt, and so they are also exempt from the collective bargaining agreement. And the network technician's duties line up more closely with that of an IT technician.
Thanks for the clarification, Ms. Shu. That makes sense. And especially that conversation had occurred 2 years ago. I'm definitely okay with the 2% that's already been budgeted for, and I'm also fine with the 3 field techs. And I guess I could be convinced to be okay with leaving the other 2 out of it, but they're already in there, and there was it sounds like at least a conversational agreement that occurred on those other 2 positions anyway. So I'm pretty much fine either way.
Mayor Gear.
Yes, Ms. Cleland.
Maybe Mr. Hoagland or Ms. Shu can kind of clarify this. Those 2 positions, they're not currently union. If they switch to that salary schedule placement of the T23 and T22, will that have a major impact kind of on where they fit within their compensation? Or can you give a little insight to that at all?
Sure. It will be a similar range that they will be moving into.
So minimal impact then on
correct. Yeah, correct.
Mayor Gear?
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, my concern with the field techs, I guess, is what we're kind of somewhat in agreement that's an area that there could be more discussion. Is we've been looking at fiber for a long time, and a couple years from now, we're not exactly sure, depending on how many customers we have and how many installs are going to be going on, how many field techs you have. But obviously, once they're part of the union, then they're even more forever than just a regular FTE. That's my concern there. So I wanted to give the city and us folks that are challenged with the budget every year a little bit more flexibility, and that's my point on those positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
So first of all, I'm happy with the 2% number because I think it seems to be in line with what we should be providing because it was at least consistent with the first half 2020 CPIW. It's consistent. It's actually less than what Arlington is given. So I'm okay with that. It's less than what we're giving some unions, but there's other explanations for why that is different depending on the different contracts. I think it's a fair number. Correct me if I'm wrong, either Mr. Hoagland or Ms. Shu. My understanding of the general rule is just all things being equal, we can't really tell people they can't be in a union. With some provisos, if they're management employees or whatever. But with these employees, I think that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, if we decided to terminate the fiber program and everything tomorrow, we would preserve union employees' jobs, and it would follow a seniority system. I mean, if we eliminated positions, fiber employees would not necessarily be eliminated as employees, but those jobs would go away, and we'd have to rearrange things.
Ms. Shu?
Mr. Hoagland, do you want me to answer that, or Mayor?
Yes,
Please.
please.
Okay. So our collective bargaining agreement does not have a traditional seniority clauses like some others may have, but we do have a history of working with our employees, and there is attrition that occurs through the years. So oftentimes we're able to find places that make logical fits for employees to be able to transition into. Our teams for employees are for cause, but really our non-union employees, other than our directors, are for cause in regard for the employment status. So I think that we would be having a similar conversation regardless if they're represented or not represented.
So it's just my sense that there's always just so much attrition in a staff of our size all the time that having people in a union or not is not a real constraint on our ability to change programs or change departments, because we can fit people in, keep people whole per our agreements, and still change programs to make sure for our residents.
Correct. Other comments? Discussion? What is your pleasure, council?
Mayor Gear, I move approval of the resolution as presented.
Second.
You have a motion by Mr. Walters, a second by Mr. McDougall to approve resolution 3011 as presented. Ms. Hunt, would you take the vote?
Sorry, I have to unmute to do that. Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
No.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Good discussion. All right, this time we're going to move on to item 5B, which is a contract award for our Avenue long-term improvement project, consultant services number 20-127-TRN-001. This is a discussion with possible action. And Mr. Buckemeyer or Mr. Lang, who is presenting this evening?
Mayor, this is Fred Buckenmeyer. Steve Lang's going to be doing the presenting, but I just wanted to give a quick introduction to the
Perfect.
project. Yeah, and
Well,
I think Mr. Lang and Eric Scharbeck are both present tonight and can help. But this is just another phase of our Avenue corridor improvements. It's been a while since we've done the last project on that corridor. And so we've asked Steve to kind of give a brief history about, the things that we've done, the things that we plan on doing, and some of the reasoning and behind that, the growth and traffic concerns and whatnot. So with that, Steve will, I believe, be sharing his screen. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is my first time getting to participate in a Zoom meeting and got to figure out how to share my screen here, so bear with me. And I might need Marcia's help. There we go.
You see a green share screen icon there? There you
Yep,
go.
I got that.
Perfect. Good job.
Can everybody see that?
Yep, very good. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. You bet. Well, like Fred says, it's been a while since we've done a presentation to City Council on this. And I think the last time we actually did one was in 2012 when we did the 22nd North Roundabout, which we constructed in 2013. So we've actually had quite a few City Council members change out since we really came up with this plan. I think back in 2007. So just to point out that this is on our capital facility plan. And I do want to point out that the contract amount that's in the packet that you have is incorrect, and I'm going to accept responsibility for it. And I will explain it a little bit further in the presentation. So the things that I want to touch on is the large transport corridor, the future and current land use activities, the R Avenue long-term improvement project, which is what we're here for, traffic study, the grant opportunity that we happened upon this past year that has brought us to this point, and then the consultant selection, and then opportunity for question. And although feel free to ask questions along the way if you have them, that'd be perfectly fine. So the large transport corridor, we worked real hard with in 2017, and as you can see, I got Tesoro, Endeavor, Marathon. From the time that we started to the time we ended, they started off as Tesoro and ended up as Marathon. So they worked to put all the overhead lines underground, and they also provided a new swivel base at the 17th Street intersection to allow to have us to be, let's see, I think we're the second largest transport corridor on the West Coast. And just some pictures. That's the swivel, and I don't know if a lot of folks know that those exist, but what that allows us to do is to be able to rotate the swivel or the signals. So then that way the large transport goes through, and then we close the signals back up. And there's a little cotter pin that sits right here, and we can lock it. We also, in 2013, constructed the roundabout at 22nd and R. And this here's just the path of travel for these large transports that come through. And it's going to be very similar to the roundabout that we're going to be constructing at 30th and R. And then I throw this photo here. This thing's 100 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 35 feet tall. And I believe it's about the largest transport that has made it through Anacortes. And it functioned just fine going through all the QR corridor.
What year did we do that, Steve?
I believe this is 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've had a couple of transports come through since then. So this here is the land use. I put it at the 10,000 foot level, and I highlighted some area here. We have Dakota Creek. They were looking to expand at one point in time. I'm not quite sure exactly where that's at. We have the North Basin, the Port of Anacortes looking to develop. We have some property still left at along Seafarers Way. And then we also have MJB. A little further south, we have the Salish Motel. We have Savvy Bank. And then we also have this corridor between 22nd and basically 34th that I think is going to be huge here with this new zoning change and the opportunities of development there. So I just kind of highlight some of the master plan that has come forward with the Port of Anacortes. Whether they're current or not, I don't know, but it's the most recent ones that I've seen. This here's the MJB development. And really the whole idea of this is just to let you know that this town is growing, and this corridor is going to be quite a heavily used corridor. So then we come to the R Avenue long-term improvement project. We've put it in 6 phases, and over time we've been able to complete these phases through various funding sources, be it a safety grant, be it the WashDOT, like phase 6, WashDOT came through and restriped for us when they paved in 2018. We did the new flashing beacons, the crosswalks there. We did that through a safety grant in 2012. We do have one more that we would like to put in at 26th and 27th. And we coordinated with the Skagit Transit on those locations so that we could coordinate their bus locations because they were kind of sporadic down that corridor. Phase 3 is what we're looking to do on this project. We paved 34th Street in 2014, so Phase 5 and Phase 3 are really the last two phases that we need to design and construct out, and that's what we're here for today. So as part of the Phase 3 and Phase 5 improvements, we're looking at putting a roundabout at 30th and R, which is going to be very similar to the 22nd R Avenue design. And we're doing that specifically for the large transport corridor. We know that the 22nd and R roundabout works and it functions just fine, and we want that same thing at 30th and R. We're going to improve 30th Street between R and Q heading west. That'll include curb gutter sidewalk. We look to improve Q Avenue from 29th Street to 32nd Street, same thing, curb gutter sidewalk. And we're gonna look to improve 29th Street from Q to Commercial, which is over by the bowling alley, with a pedestrian crossing on Commercial at 29th and Commercial. And that'll be curb gutter sidewalk. And along with that.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Lang. Mr. Lang, without going into great detail, why did we decide to put another roundabout at 30th and R? And what benefit will it have, meaning by way of traffic? Is it that we're trying to work with the waterfront and those industries that are there? Just curious.
Yeah, I think it was determined that that would be a nice corridor from Commercial down into the Marine Industrial District.
I can see that. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor
Let's see,
Dan.
moving forward, we got, go ahead.
Mr. McDougall?
Yeah, really quickly, Mr. Lang, you say the roundabout similar to the one on 22nd, but at 30th, we got 4 lanes. So would the roundabout be 2 lanes kind of, all the way around?
No, it'll be a single lane roundabout.
It will be a single lane roundabout.
Yeah.
Okay. So will we have like some sort of merge happening prior to entering the roundabout where our 2 lanes compress down to 1?
Yeah, similar to what you see down heading northbound at 22nd R.
Okay.
We got the 2
And
lanes
then-
merging in.
And then exiting the roundabout, we bump back out to 2 lanes. Is that what we're picturing?
That's the idea. My hope is that when we get to a 30% set of plans, I know Eric has some ideas that he would like to see from an engineer standpoint in traffic. So we kind of, on a much bigger picture, we have the ability to kind of make that corridor. We could change it to what we really want, or we leave it the way it is. But from this standpoint of what I'm looking at, it would be the transition from 2 to 1, and then as you exit, it goes back out to 2 lanes.
Okay.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr. Miller?
Well, Mr. Lang, isn't that the whole purpose of this whole scope of services, to see what you guys have your ideas, which are probably pretty spot on, but the whole point of doing this contract is to make sure that they're looking at all the possibilities, like whether it could possibly be a 2-lane roundabout at 22nd and R, or 30th and R.
Yeah, in our scope of services, we requested a single lane roundabout.
Oh, okay. So you've already narrowed the scope on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And there's gonna.
Mayor,
Ms. Cleland?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Lang. If you want to finish,
Okay.
that's fine. So I was just kind of curious, will 30th Street, will 30th Street punch through all the way from R Avenue to Commercial? Because that's where that hotel is being built. Will that happen? So it's all connected then? Is that part of the reason to have that roundabout there?
Yeah, and right now 30th Street does go through. The hotel actually improved between Commercial and Q Avenue.
Okay, it looks like it's still being, okay. I wasn't sure that it was actually open to the public yet or not, so thank you.
Well, they're on that project, they're still working final punch lists and they're still working on the building. So from the idea of a project site, even though it's paved, it's still part of their project site that they're responsible for. And until they get that building done, I think that you'll see it still closed off. They did open it up as such, so that way the Bayside Dental could actually get in and use their parking lot. So
Yeah. Mayor Gear?
Mr. Young.
Well, just one last point. I look forward to Fred just sort of looking further at how we do this at the 30th and R roundabout. I know we've had some conversations about it. My only concern would be that we would go from 2 to 1, back to 2, back to 1 in a short span. And I'm just not sure how efficient that really is, and does it really, does it really produce the results that we want? That would be my only concern about it. And I'd love for us to explore that and have further discussions about it.
And I think we will. I know that Eric had made comments that it's an opportunity to actually restripe that whole corridor. So
I like that. I like that idea, because I think if we're going to do that, I think it would be important to have everything on the table at this point.
oh yeah. But for right now, that's just kind of how it's set up. But like I say, when we get the 30% plans and we actually have something to put down on the table and take a look at, then we can come back and kind of show you what we have.
Okay.
That's what I had planned.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So then getting back to it, and then on the R Avenue corridor from 22nd to 34th, we'd be putting in a 10-foot wide multi-use sidewalk that would benefit the bicycles and pedestrians. And then looking at doing a full median from 22nd to 34th. So basically that corridor will be a right turn in, right turn out. And I'll get to that here in a little bit as to why we want to do that. And then looking at some water quality features within the existing public right-of-way to provide water quality for these improvements, as well as R Avenue itself. I know that a portion of R Avenue, we have pretty good water quality from our last project we did at 22nd R, but this would certainly provide some opportunities to take some of the wide areas that are grass that we can utilize for water quality. So we did a traffic study. We hired Transportation Solutions Incorporated to develop a citywide concurrency model. So then that way, as things happen, we can send the information to TSI and they can plug the model in and run it and find out kind of a real time what's happening with intersections. And it's usually a conversation that takes place whenever a subdivision comes in. Everybody talks about the impact to intersections. And we wanted to know what was going on around town, so we had that. And what came back to us is what I have before you is that we have 4 failing intersections in all of Anacortes, and 3 of them are on the R Avenue corridor. So if we look at the details of it, they're just all side swipes and T-bones, the broadside accidents, people taking left turns out of these intersections and getting hit. So I had a map done up here, and I kind of just wanted to kind of show you. This map is from accidents from 1998 till now, and so this is the 22nd R. This is pre the roundabout. So we got 31 accidents there. We got 9 accidents at 28th. We got 29 at 30th. At 32nd, we have 24 accidents. At 34th, we have 28 accidents. So we're looking to improve that with this project.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. Mr. Lang, I just want to thank you for such an excellent presentation. I really appreciate the context you've given us, and to show in these kind of terms where the accidents are and everything is super helpful to be able to visualize these things. Thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you. And just so you know, these, and to the general public, that This information can be found on the interactive map with under Public Works under the GIS mapping. And you can get in and click on a node and it'll tell you what the accident was. If it was speeding, if it was, whatever. Not speeding, but an accident or whatever it may be that caused the issue and what year it was. And then real quick to go back up to the 17th Street, just because I'm proud of that one. Worked real hard to get that one in. Just for the technical information and for the city council and the folks at home that are watching this, if you were curious about how these things work, Public Works put a video of and it's under the Public Works projects under large transport. And you can actually get in and see how we work these signals. And the company that made these, Blacklaw, if you were to YouTube and search Blacklaw swivels, you'll see yours truly actually opening them up. And the guy actually created a commercial for his own company for here in Anacortes.
So what happens is when you do the swivel, then the arm that has the signals, they swing and become parallel to the corridor, correct?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And it only takes about 10 seconds to open them up, and the unit comes through, and we close them, put the pin in, and we're done. We don't have to do the years ago, before we got these, the idea behind that was that DOT would come in and they would drop those mast arms, and then we would set up a temporary four-way intersection with signs. And then about 4 or 5 days later, when WashDOT had time, they would come back in and put those mast arms back up, and we would take our signs away. So it really reduced the amount of field time and hours that go into a large transport. So it's just a 10-second swivel, and it's a done deal, and we all go home.
Very cool.
So with the grant funding, so one of the things that came my way was this grant through SCOG, and Mayor, you're familiar with it, and I don't know if some of the other council people have had conversations with Fred or Eric through the Public Works Committee, but they had a surface transportation block grant came available, and it was kind of a last minute deal, and we decided to put in for it in May of 19. And for this contract, I want to be clear that it's just for design only. We don't have any construction money for this. And so the effort behind this is to have a shovel-ready project. So if next year a stimulus package comes through similar to what was done under the Obama administration when we did 6th Street, that we have a shovel-ready project that we can wave our hand up and say, hey, we have this, and they can say, yeah, here you go, and we can get it built. If that's not the case, well, then we just have a shovel-ready project that we get to go through and look for additional funding down the road. Part of that grant, we ranked really high within the county, within the region, just purely for the fact that we had not only the accidents for a safety program that we could put together, but also for the pedestrian and bicycle improvements, and that we were in a low-income housing area, and that scored real high. So we were ranked #1 as far as the projects go within the county. In April of this year, we found out that there were some agencies that were going to have trouble obligating their funds by August, and so they moved their projects out to the end of this year, which opened up like $1.2 million that the county needed to obligate funds for this year. And Anacortes raised their hand and said, "Hey, we're ready to move if it works." And sure enough, we were able to move this project a year ahead, and we got this thing pretty much obligated in I don't know. I think we were obligated in June of this year, and we were awarded the amount of $525,488. And so there's a 13.5% match that we have to add to that. And so our part of it, if you will, is $83,000 or $82,012. And so it shows 83 here, but we added $1,000 that DOT wanted us to add on to it purely for a JA account. So if they do any reviews, they have the ability to charge against that account. So that moved the number to $83,012, and we were going to do that under impact fees. So that gives us the $608,500. So that's the total funding available funds, and that's where I messed up on the. So if you look at the agenda bill, it has the dollar amount $608,500. Well, we have a new process of requesting contracts, and so when I saw the total contract amount, my head thought something differently, so I put in the $608,500, and really the contract amount is going to be the $573,207, which is shown on the right side of the Lochner contract. So, anyways, got that part. So in August, we did a consultant selection. Once we got the project funded or obligated, we sent out an advertisement for statement of qualifications to the engineering firms. We received 5 packets. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, misnumber there. Packets from engineering firms that went from Linden all the way down to Seattle and the Kirkland area. And within that statement of qualifications, we have a scoring, what they were going to be scored at. And so there was a handful of us that sat down and actually reviewed each packet and kind of did our own individual scoring, and then we got together and added them up. And I provided on the left-hand side the scoring that we came up with. And based on the numbers, we went with Lochner and Associates. So what I'm asking is that and recommending is the $573,207 with the Lochner contract for tonight.
Mayor Garrett.
Mr. Walters.
I think this is an excellent and complete presentation. I think we're really doing a lot of things right here, and I support approval of this contract to move forward with design. I really support the overall approach of identifying a long-term need, having a vision for solutions, and then taking an incremental approach to implementation. So it doesn't have to be a $30 million project to do the whole corridor at once. We can knock these things off as opportunities present themselves, and so that we can make development pay for these improvements as the need occurs as well, and as development occurs. But there will be some significant changes to the corridor as a result of this last phase, and it's a little different than just a roundabout, because a roundabout is still an intersection that you still get to go through. I mean, you're not going to be able to make left turns. Obviously, there's a benefit to that because it's going to be safer, but there's going to be a circulation change as a result. I think improving 30th between R and Q and then routing 32nd Street traffic onto that street could be kind of a big deal through the neighborhood there. I'm very hesitant about sidewalks that are also used by bicycles. I think the users benefit from separation, even at 10 feet. I just think that we need to ensure that we have some public outreach associated with this, some really good public outreach, ensure that all the users, the big users and the small users, get to weigh in. We probably need wayfinding improvements because it will be more difficult to get someplace places as a result of these changes. And there might be other tweaks or tweaks on other roads that we should queue up to have some synergy with this project. It may not change the project, but I do think that that outreach and that community input will be essential to its success.
Walters. Mr. Young.
Again, I agree with Mr. Walters and Mr. Lang. This was an excellent presentation. I think what you really did was you brought forward an in-depth view of how we got here, why it's important. I really do appreciate that. Back on your slide 15, if you would go back to that one, my question is more concerning, I don't know how to say it other than to be blunt about it. I like the idea we got the grant for $573,000 to do some work. My concern is that the cost of consultation for engineering design work, and I was just curious if those others in the scoring, what were their price points? Were they within, meaning the cost for this service that we're asking to be put forward? What were the costs associated with that? I just think it's such a lot of money, and even though we got a grant for it, for most of it, I'm just, I guess, a little bit more frugal about, can we use this engineering opportunity for a bigger issue, including this? So I guess I was just wondering, did those other bidders or those other agencies, how did they compare in price?
Well, so we don't ask for prices when we go for statement of qualifications. We just ask that they provide what they've done of similar work and their approach, their project management. When we go through and score, that's when we start negotiating. They submit a scope of work and a scope of services, and they're taking and they're subbing out to geotechnical, they're subbing out to survey, they're subbing out to whatever to make this work. I think they got in, and it's in the packet, but I don't have it here in front of me. But there's probably 4 or 5 consultants that they're working with, and so those consultants are just based off of what they're getting from like Lochner. They're providing a price amount. They have to sit and figure, okay, I got 20 blocks or 15 blocks of road that we got to go out and survey, and they have a number that they use to give a bid. And I've been able to negotiate some of the surveying back. I'm concerned about the geotechnical, and I have an agreement with the Lochner project manager that we're going to watch that one, because it's a super high, and I don't think we need to go that high based on what I know that road to be and what's underneath it. So it's kind of a project management side of it, and I'm with you. I'm well aware. I'm pretty heavy on watching taxpayer dollars. I don't take it for granted.
I hear you on that, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the fact that you brought it up and how you're policing it. I really do, and I acknowledge that. In this process, I guess the thing I'm trying to wrap my head around is that we did the scoring, and then after the scoring, because we got KPFF at 105, Reed Middleton at 110, and Lochner at 113. So in that scoring, in proposing to go forward with Lochner, we didn't have an understanding of the cost associated with it. I guess, in being not an engineer, my thought would be that once we narrowed it down to the top 2 or 3, then we would ask them for the scope of work and the cost associated with it. But in this case, I'm not seeing that that's what we did, and I'm not judging that. I'm just thinking from a business perspective that if we have our top 3 and they are relatively close in scoring, then it comes down to the amount of money. You know, can they do what we want? What is the scope of that? That's where my concern is. And if you could elaborate a little of that, you may not be able to, and I understand, but that is my only concern, because 608,000 is a lot of money for a consulting thing. And if it's worth it, yes. But then even though we got the grant for 500 and something thousand, it would seem that that would neutralize it. But I think that if we got a grant for 500 and something $1,000, unless they specifically said that it needs to be only on R for this purpose, you know, I just still think it's a lot of money, and I just need your help in understanding that.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Butler.
Yeah, great question, Mr. Young. And what you're saying would actually make a lot of sense. Unfortunately, we have to follow the state procurement rules. And when we do a statement of qualifications, this is the process we follow. We don't actually negotiate price until the consultant has been selected, and that's per state law. So we have often commented that what you're suggesting would be something that would make a lot more sense for local agencies and allow for, you know, discussion of price to play into it. But these are the state law procurement requirements for this type of procurement. So, but it's a really good question.
No, I really appreciate you saying that too, because it would seem that it's putting the cart before the horse, because if you've identified qualified people and that can do the work that you have ranked obviously very high, it would then come down, in my opinion, to negotiating whom can best give service to what we're looking to achieve. And so in this case, once you made that determination, you're just kind of stuck with negotiating a price with this person, and there's no competitive incentive, I think. But thank you very much for your comment.
You're right, but
So Mr. Lang, I have a question. The exhibits that were included in the packet are very detailed. They break down hourly tasks, you know, take every task and they break it down by the hour, the qualification. So as you oversee a project like this, if they have said they're going to have like 8 hours in consulting team design, and do you watch and make sure that's really what happened? Or, you know,
what I'm going to try, and yeah, we do. But on this one here in particular, and it sounds a little daunting, and I'm somewhat proficient with Excel, but I would like to take the information that they have given me and put it into an Excel spreadsheet, so that when they do send in an invoice, you know, I can go through and put those numbers in and kind of keep track and be a little bit more on top of it with the Lochner project manager.
I mean, I'm very impressed with how they broke down every task, every hour. I mean,
yeah,
page after page after page.
Yeah,
So
and that's just based on a scope of project that these folks sit down and they'll put that together. So, you know, getting back to Anthony's question, you know, we've say, for example, the 22nd in our roundabout, we had 2 engineering firms that were within 1 point. And so now we sit down and make phone calls and we interview them and see the fit there. You know, and if they give you an answer that you just didn't really like, well, it's like, okay, now we're going to go with this guy or this firm. We've worked with Reed Middleton. They designed the 22nd R roundabout. They designed the commercial roundabout. They did Anaco Beach Road for us, so we're very familiar with them over the years. KPFF, they're designing for MJB, so you know, it's one of those deals that you know, they're busy here in town. Skillings, local guy, even though he's out of Lacey, he lives here in Anacortes. You know, and he just didn't quite score that high. Gray and Osborne, we currently use them for our third-party water quality modeling and review. And Reichart and Eby, they have done 22nd R roundabout, and they just recently did the Ship Harbor roundabout for us, and also Fidalgo Bay Road for the Samish tribe a few years ago. So We have in Skillings, he's done work for Anacortes on the wastewater treatment plant side. So we have an excellent relationship with all of them, but just based on what they submitted to us, it's their presentation. That's how they got ranked. If that helps clarify.
Yes.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, no, thanks for that clarification, and thanks to Ms. Swetnam for reminding us about some of the different rules for contracting, although there may be an opportunity in there to maybe tweak some AWC lobbying for some minor legislative changes, because it sounds pretty weird to me also that you couldn't pick the top three and then work your way to a number. But anyway, that's not my main point, but there's probably some opportunity in there to improve the way we can do that. Because every time we see one of these very large consulting contracts, I feel like it's a giant baseball bat to any taxpayer when you're just getting consulting work. However, this is, I think, a very important project, and I support it. Our avenue is critical. I mean, MJB, the Dakota Creek, truck routing, although I didn't, when you talk pedestrians, that's awesome, but I'm always worried about the truck routing beyond our own businesses here in Anacortes that are continuing on to 12th and Oaks, and any improvement we can do there. But again, this project overall, I think, can hopefully lead us in the best directions, and we're not limiting our scope. Again, Steve, you and Eric do a great job. I know you guys know what you're doing. You know how that area works, but I would just be worried about limiting your scope when we're paying a consultant to help you, come up with ideas. So I guess my advice would not be to limit that scope so much. Whatever you can inside the scope of the contract, be open to the suggestions.
And it is, but when you go out and we know that a single lane roundabout functions, you're right. They might come back and say, you know what, we could probably be better off with a 2-lane. But
yeah, you're paying them. We're paying them to come up with great ideas.
Yeah. So just to further clarify, the grant itself, I went through and did an estimate, and usually the engineering side of this is roughly about 10% of what the estimate is. That's what we use as a rule of thumb. And my estimate to do all of this was 5.5 million.
Yeah, and that's a great.
At 573, and I'm less than 2 days, 3 days trying to throw a number at this grant because it was a quick one. And they come in at 573, and I'm at 550. For my own estimate. At 23,000 to me is not a bad deal. So
right, and again, I understand it. It still doesn't mean we're going to ask a lot of hard questions about large consulting contracts, whether it's our money or federal money or county money. But I do our avenue. Just a quick question that you can probably answer, might be interesting to other council members. But I remember, because it's so heavily crowned, that can't be overlaid again. Is that correct? We're done overlaying, is that something they'd be able to tell us?
Yeah, we could, and I haven't had a conversation with Erica on this, but yeah, you're right. It is crowned on that one side, on the southbound lane, and it shouldn't have been, but it is what it is. And if we wanted to add that into that part of the project, well, then we could basically grind that down and redo it. There's under that road is about 8 inches of ATB, and it's hard as a rock. And so we could get down to that level and grade it, pave it as such so that way that slopes the way that it should.
Mr. Lane, would you elaborate just a little bit on what you mean by crowned?
So the road, when you design a road, you design it with a 2% crown, right? And so that way it slopes off to one curb and it slopes off to the other curb, hits the curb, goes into a catch basin. The way that they designed our avenue, and you got your northbound and your southbound, and both of them are sloped at 2%, cross slope. So they weren't intended to have a crown on each lane. It was intended to cross slope. So that way it hit the the southbound lane, the water would hit the median, go into a catch basin. And on the northbound lane, it would hit the east side curb and into the catch basin. So it was just something that got missed on the last time it got paved. Not a big deal. It just seems a little weird when you're driving it, you know. But you know, if that's something that part of this deal that we say, yeah, we want that fixed. You know, we can add that to the list. So.
Okay, thank you.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
As to the magnitude of the expense, I think Mr. Lang is absolutely right, and he should correct me if I'm wrong on any of the following, but 5 or 10% on design for the project is not that big a deal. That's probably where we should be. And at the end of the day, this contract will yield us a stack of documents, you know, crazy tall with precise drawings of exactly how to build the project that are informed by geotechs and engineers and CAD drawings, artists and all these people. So it's not, I don't want the public to walk away with the impression that it's sketches. You know, it's called design, but it's actually engineering. So I think it's
yeah, we're going to have we'll have bid ready documents sitting ready to go. So like I say, my effort, if there's a stimulus package that comes through, I would just as soon have this thing ready sooner than later. So then that way we can raise our hand and say, yeah, we're ready to go. And, you know, even if we have to break it up in phases, you know, based on the monies, then we have the ability to do that as well. So.
And that's precisely what we should be doing. So we are just right on point here.
Mayor Gear?
Mr. Young.
Yeah, I hear you, and I just felt it important to raise that question. I'm supporting it. I think that this, as you said, is a great use of the resources that we've got, and I think you have your finger on the pulse of it. So I'm in support of it. Thank you, though, for answering all my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the amount, instead of the 608.5 that's in the agenda bill that's incorrect, it would be the 573,207.
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
I move that we approve the contract as presented with that change in the total contract amount to 573,207.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Walters, a second by Mr. Miller to approve the contract award for the R Avenue Long-Term Improvement Project Consultant Service number 20-27-TRN-001 in the amount of $573,207. Ms. Hunt, would you take the vote?
Here.
Yes.
I thought I'd just note that apparently Carolyn lost her internet again.
Oh, okay. Should we wait a moment?
Thank you, Mr. I got it back. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. And Ms. Hunt, would you take the vote?
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
On again.
okay.
Come back to her.
We'll come back. Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries even without Ms. Moulton's vote. So.
And she returns, she can signify what she wanted. All right, so.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Great presentation, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. All right, so now we're going to move on to item 5C. This is open for public comment. This is civic clerk public meeting demonstration. This will be done by our very own Ms. Hunt. And here we go.
Okay, we're going to try some screen sharing here and see how that works. Okay, can you all see the city website now?
Yep.
Okay, super. So we just wanted to take a few minutes to briefly introduce to the viewing audience and to our elected officials a few enhancements that took effect first of the year for our public meeting presentations. So as of the 1st of January, the city has migrated its public meeting platform to Civic Clerk, which is part of the Civic Plus suite of citizen engagement software. And Civic Plus is what the city already uses for its website. So that will result in some much better integration between all of our different meeting bits and pieces. So just like prior software, all of our city council meetings and all of our planning commission meetings will be handled through this software, but the software does have opportunity to expand into other meeting types if we want to do that in the future. So nothing's changed about how you get there. From the city website, your government meetings, watch meetings, takes you to a page that looks vaguely familiar. And we've designed this to be your one-stop dashboard to get to anything public meeting. You want the video, you want the agenda, you want the packet, everything's here for city council and planning commission. So similarly to prior, the first section shows you current and upcoming events. And you can see that tonight's meeting, the January 4th meeting, let's make that a little bit bigger, shows as live right now. And that's in fact where we are. If you want to watch that meeting live, you can click that. And I'm not going to play you the video right now because then we'll have feedback because we'll have double, double audio going. But you can watch the meeting live, you can scroll through, you can click on links to see the agenda packet. And as you vote, the motion and the votes will show live as I take those minutes during the meeting. So this is a great way to watch the meeting live, although there are still other options. As soon as this meeting is complete, we'll click a button and it will upload. It will upload in about 1/10 of the time as our prior software, which is a huge efficiency for staff. And at that point, tonight's meeting will join all of our recent events and past events down here in the bottom section. You can sort those by date. You can sort them by category. If you only want to look at city council meetings, you can filter them that way. And if you want to look at a past meeting, either click the little media icon or click the city council meeting. Either way, it opens the same screen. So to look for a past meeting, this is the December 28th meeting. You can watch the video, you can jump to particular points on the prior meeting. You can see the agenda, you can see the minutes. Just like before, the minutes won't be posted until after they're approved by the body, whether it's planning commissioner or city council, but they'll eventually show up there. A new feature is if you particularly like a meeting, maybe you got the Mayor's Award of Merit at that meeting and you want to send it to your grandmother, hey, you can send a link off to this meeting to anyone you like, which is kind of handy. Or you might want to mark it as a favorite, which you can do as well. So there is a public comment option in this screen as well. And similar to the e-comment that we had from our prior vendor. So for any meeting that's published here, you can submit your comments, just type in your name and email address, whatever comment you want to make. Regardless of when we receive those, they will be forwarded to the appropriate body, whether it's city council or planning commission, but any comments that are received by 3 o'clock the day of the meeting will get there before the meeting begins. We can guarantee that. So all those functions are available, similar but in a little better shape than before. One of the nice things is that the packets are now also available. You used to be able to see the minutes and the agendas from this essentially the same screen, but now you can pull the packet as well and complete with the bookmarks, so that if you just want to jump to a particular item, it's there, which I know was a frustration for a few of our council members in the past. So there is search capability. So you can find meetings that might have included a certain term. Tonight, for instance, you addressed the Teamster MOU. Maybe you wanted to go find the meeting where we approved the initial contract. So we know it was last year, but you don't remember exactly when. Excuse me. So you can search for that. And turns out, hey, yeah, there were a couple meetings last year where we addressed that. You can watch that meeting then if you want to do that. So that's a handy feature as well. So as I said, this watch meetings page is intended to be your one-stop shop. In addition to watching the live meeting here, you can also watch on YouTube still. And so there's a link there to get you to the city's YouTube channel where you can watch live or after the fact. So you have options there. You can also participate in the meeting and or watch it by signing into the Zoom meeting as you have been in the past. So we have a link here to get you all of that information. Same sheet you've seen before. It includes a link to the Zoom meeting or instructions for dialing in by phone. So all that information is available to you a click away on the landing page. Something that's new now is the Civic Clerk software is ADA compliant, and so there's an ADA landing page that also provides a version that's amenable to screen readers. So any of our citizens who are trying to watch meetings with screen readers have a much better option now. And so we put that right on the front landing page so everybody can get there. If you are accessing either the video or any of the components using a mobile device, if you're doing this on your phone, we put a link here for converting that. It puts it in a full screen mode, which works much better on your phone. So that link is there. So pretty much the same functionality, except for things will have higher definition of video, much faster, and much more stable than what we had before. So we are currently migrating the materials from our old vendor. So all of the agendas, packets, and minutes are always available on our electronic document portal. There's a link here, but we're migrating the rest of the videos. So those will be online here before the end of the month. So that's it in a nutshell. Are there questions that I can answer?
Members of the audience, if there's anyone in the public that has a question also. Mr. Walters.
It seems to me that this new system is a fairly substantial improvement over the old, and probably worth the additional cost, the replacement cost, really, of the old system. I think that we are likely to have comments after using it a little bit more, because this is our first trial run with it as well. One of the things that has bothered me a little bit is that sometimes you're not wanting to watch the meeting, you're wanting the meeting packet. And if you're navigating the menu on the website, it may not be obvious that watch meetings is also where you go for the meeting packet. But little things like that, I think, can be teased out over time. And I guess I would encourage everybody to email Marcia.
There's a convenient link here to email the city clerk. I encourage that as well.
Okay, any additional questions of Marcia? Really, thank you for the tour, Marcia. Great improvement. Looking forward to using it. Anyone have any comments or questions? All right, well, hearing none, thank you, Ms. Hunt. And at this time, I will adjourn tonight's meeting. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you all next week or sometime this week. Bye-bye.